If I get a roll call, please, Ms. Dietrich.
Chairperson Tuggle,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Howe,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Williams,
Here.
Commission Member Witt,
Here.
City Attorney Litchford.
Here.
Okay, and we are going to approve some minutes. I believe we are going to start back over with November 4th. Is that correct? Okay, we had a small error in the roll call last time, so in the interest of doing everything correctly, even though they would have still been approved based upon the number who we had here, we're going to do it correctly, and we're going to go through the votes for the November 4th and January 15th meeting minutes as well. So I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve January 15th meeting. Do we need to go in order?
If you don't mind, let's go in order for November 4th, if we could start with that one, please.
Oh, okay. I make a motion that we approve November 4th,
Okay.
2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Dietrich, roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Howe,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Abstain.
Commission Member Williams,
Yes.
Commission Member Witt,
Yes.
Chairperson Tuggle.
Yes. Okay, and now for the January 15th, 2025 meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve January 15th, 2025 meeting notes.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Dietrich, roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Howe,
Abstain.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Williams,
Yes.
Commission Member Witt,
Yes.
Chairperson Tuggle.
Yes. All right, and then the last minutes would be our most recent meeting, April 14th, 2025.
Make a motion to approve minutes from April 14th, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion from Vice Chairperson Howe and a second from Commission Member Witt. Ms. Dietrich?
Vice Chairperson Howe,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Williams,
Yes.
Commission Member Witt,
Yes.
Chairperson Tuggle.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Appreciate getting that cleared up. It says communications and comments by the public. We have a few items here, so we're going to go in order. We'll start with each one of these new business items and have you speak concerning that item so we can get everybody moved through as quickly as possible. That way you're not all sitting here. So we'll move that slightly further. There is no old business, so we're going to move directly to new business. Item 6A is to consider the request of Buddy Presley Jr., Presley Law Firm, to have the property located at 3210 Ardian Trail, tax map ID number 168CJ005, rezoned from R1 Residential District to C2 General Commercial District. Mr. Howell, if you don't mind.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. This is a request to use the parcel for storage of school buses. The surrounding land use included single-family residential to the north, single-family residential to the east, single-family residential to the south, and single-family residential to the west. Proposed density for this is 1.9 dwelling units per acre. Adjacent residential is 2.5 dwelling units per acre. There is no zoning history for the site. The closest C2 district is approximately 655 feet to the east along Ringo Road. The compatibility challenges are as follows for this rezoning. The site is surrounded by low intense residential land use. There are no commercial uses near the site. The commercial use are to the east along Ringo Road Commercial Corridor. The site is located within a single-family detached residential subdivision with 1- and 2-story dwellings and individual driveways. There are no commercial developments near the site, and the presence of multiple large school buses would alter the visual character and reduce neighborhood cohesion. Introduction of a commercial zone at this location is a spot zone and would introduce commercial industrial level activity into a low intense residential setting, thus inviting additional incompatibility uses nearby. There are a nuisance concern because the C2 district allows auto-oriented utility substations, ambulance services that could produce lighting, noise, and outdoor nuisance to the adjacent residential properties. Allowing a single-family property to be zoned commercial with lower surrounding property values increase resistance to future residential investments in the area. Early morning engine startup warm-ups coupled by challenges to fencing and vegetation for screening and buffering generate unavoidable levels of sound and odor that are not appropriate or compatible with nearby residential properties. The City Council adopted Resolution 3517, which provides guidelines for rezoning that increase the intensity and use of or population rezoning, the importance of protecting the integrity of R1 single-family residential neighborhood district.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. All right, so we had a statement of compatibility challenges. Any questions from the commission?
None at this time for me.
All right, and before we begin in public, if we can have the applicant or representative for the applicant, if they want to come forward and speak, and then we also have a letter that I will read since the applicant, or this comment is not here, so we'll introduce all that. If you go ahead and begin, if you can provide your name and your address, please.
Well, my name's Buddy Presley. I'm an attorney. I represent Tanya Floyd. And my office is 1384 Gun Barrel Road, but she's, her address is obviously listed on here. but-
Sure, no, yours is fine. It's for the minutes. You're good. Thank you.
Yeah. We're here today. This is a situation, the buses have been parked there since 2006. They're contracted through the school board for Hamilton County. This is a situation where I understand the comments from Mr. Howell, but this is a situation of public welfare and safety. These buses are integral to not only the school system, including East Ridge, but also the first responder provisions in federal law, which require cities, counties, states to enact provisions and plans in place to be able to respond to school emergencies, other emergencies that could arise. And so the buses would have to be, readily available to respond to those. And there have been instances where they've responded. Since this has been going on over the last year, this whole process, the city of East Ridge has actually contracted with her regarding the use of the buses and has used them on several occasions. So I think the public welfare and safety exception would apply related to spot zoning argument. There are 64 contractors of buses in Hamilton County. I understand this is the city of East Ridge, but this is also integral to the entire county. There's 64 contractors. There's 207 buses in Hamilton County. We've brought, and I could list them or provide to the commission a copy of 18, this is just over the last 2 weeks, 18 contractors in Hamilton County, and the zoning requirements and restrictions are very similar in some of these other jurisdictions and the county. There are 18 contractors that have buses in R1 zoning, and there's 65 buses total that are in R1 zoning in Hamilton County. This particular instance, we still don't understand what the necessity was since this has been there since 2006. What the necessity was for this to suddenly cause a particular problem. We're in this started in 2024, but we're in 2025 now. The commission, and ultimately the city council, has the ability to restrict or provide particular variances related to a zoning change. We've offered to put up a fence if it's the site of the buses. So with that particular, and we've offered, I know the building inspector has related the numerous uses that could exist under C2, but those could also be restricted by the commission, ultimately passed over by the city council with regard to the usage. And so you couldn't all of a sudden have a retail strip center going in out there if there was a restriction on the zoning change. Ideally, that it would be for this particular use regarding the parking of the buses. But the biggest reason for these buses, and the biggest reason for these buses around the entire county, of which we're part of, is related to health and safety, and being able to respond in the need of a particular emergency, along with, obviously, Miss Floyd, these buses are used in East Ridge. They're not buses where she's driving to Ooltewah and servicing Ooltewah schools. These are servicing East Ridge schools, not outside of the city. And so I think with the proper restrictions that you could be confirmed that this wasn't going to turn into a situation where this could explode into something more than what it really is, and the fact that there's a somewhat 18 now 19-year history of these buses being parked in the same location at the same house. So we've requested a zoning change and would be glad to welcome what restrictions went along with that particular zoning change.
Thank you, sir. Okay, a couple of questions. Mr. Howell, are there any places in East Ridge that are designated for bus parking? What's typical?
Typically, they're parked at the schools themselves.
I say, do we have that provision for East Ridge schools available?
If there's availability to park in the schools, that's up to the drivers to contact the schools to see if they have the availability to park there.
Okay, thank you. Has there been a zoning change since 2006, or was this the existing zoning for this parcel?
It's been the existing zoning
Been the same the whole time?
the whole time.
Thank you. Mr. Litchford, are you familiar with the First Responders Act?
No, I was going to ask, what citation?
Well, I can provide it to you, but it's a national provision that was passed regarding, and the bus drivers would be considered first responders. It was a First Responder Act that was passed, that all cities, counties, and all municipal governments have to have some sort of plan regarding emergencies, including Hamilton County, City of East Ridge. Everybody has to have some kind of plan regarding being able to respond to some school shootings. She is contracted through the Hamilton County Department of Education.
Well, let me what is the citation specific?
I don't have it right here in front of me.
But it's your position. There is a citation that
There's a national First Responder Act that exists, and you can.
First Responder Act. And is it, like bus drivers are specifically mentioned in this
But
act?
it doesn't say bus drivers, but it talks about all personnel that would be required regarding particular emergencies, including transportation. And the Hamilton County Department of Education considers their contract with their drivers, and this comes from, there's an individual that, and she could probably tell me his name, I apologize, requires them to be available for responding in emergency situations. Yeah, it's Brandon Allen, who's the Director of Transportation.
Would Brandon Allen know about this act, the first?
Well,
responder?
he wrote me a letter, and I'll be glad to provide a copy of the letter to you, and you can look at it right now if you want to.
That's fine. For what it's worth, my research that I have performed in connection with, I've talked to Mr. Presley. Both I and an associate in our office have research, we are unable to locate a First Responders Act relative to a zoning or for zoning exemptions or First Responder Act that relates to bus drivers.
I don't-
If there is something,
And I'm not, I don't want to be misquoted. I'm not saying there's an act that mentions bus drivers. Okay, and I'm not saying there's an act that requires a zoning variance or a zoning change. What I'm saying is that there is a national statute which requires municipalities, states, and other governments to have a plan in place regarding emergency preparedness. Part of that plan involves transportation. In the event, particularly in this case, the most likelihood of a responder thing would be either an evacuation of a school within a 30-minute time frame, or would require a response time related to some other severe weather event or something like that.
It just
I'm not
seems
trying
like-
to mislead you. I'm just saying there is a requirement that these buses be ready to respond.
It just does seem that it could be faster to respond if they're parked at the school than if they're parked in a
The
house.
problem with the school parking is multiple cases of vandalism on the buses that are parked there.
Yeah, I don't think vandalism is part of the zoning code. So what we're here to discuss is this board is not even whether or not the First Responders Act has any bearing on where they should be parked. It's whether or not this parcel fits the appropriate use for rezoning to C2. And whether or not the use of that land has changed during the course of the time has no bearing on whether or not that's appropriate for the city's body.
I get it.
Now, my personal opinion often conflicts with resolutions that have already been adopted, one of which is one the city council adopted for spot zoning. There have been many times I feel we should have made something that is a judgment that we cannot make because the city's adopted a resolution that prevents certain things from happening. So the city's own form and procedure differs from that of the county, from the RPA. We have our own standards. We have our own appearance requirements. We have many things that are adopted as a city, and this board is subject to follow that. And so that's what I think we're trying to establish. And so my questions were more about the compatibility challenges, and I think what I'm reading in number 6 is because of Resolution 3517. That's the zoning for spot zoning. Is that the right one? I think that's the resolution.
Not necessarily for spot zoning, it's to protect residential districts
Okay,
from,
right.
the
Gotcha.
introduction of commercial impediments of this nature.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you. We'll probably invite you back in a moment once there's some public feedback, so thank you for that. I'm going to start the public feedback portion with a letter, and since I asked everybody to get through their comments in 2 minutes, I'm going to do my best to read this in 2 minutes. So we'll see how this goes. This is a redacted letter. It was anonymous. There is no name on it, but it says it's addressed to Michael Howell. And it says, Michael, I've been asked by several of the neighbors of 3210 Ardian Trail to share this letter of opposition prior to tonight's meeting. We would prefer to stay anonymous to not upset our neighbors. Statement of opposition, residential to commercial. As concerned neighbors and residents of this subdivision, we respectfully submit this statement in opposition to the proposed rezoning of the property located at 3210 Ardian Trail from residential to commercial for the purpose of operating a school bus enterprise. While we recognize and appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit of Mrs. Floyd and commend her business growth, we firmly believe this type of commercial activity is incompatible with the character, safety, and intent of our residential community. The presence of a school bus enterprise in a neighborhood designed for family homes raises multiple concerns. Number 1, traffic and safety risks. The operation of multiple large vehicles such as school buses increases traffic volume and poses potential hazards to children, pedestrians, and other drivers on streets not built for commercial transport use. Number 2, noise and disruption. School bus operations typically involve early morning startups, idling engines, and frequent movement throughout the day, which would significantly disrupt the peace and quiet that residents expect in a residential neighborhood. Number 3, precedent for future commercial intrusion. Approving this rezoning could set a precedent that opens the door to other commercial operations, further eroding the residential nature of the subdivision and impacting property values. Number 4, impact on property values and quality of life. The shift from residential to commercial use may negatively affect surrounding home values and deter future homeowners from investing in the community. We also believe it's important to highlight that outgrowing a residential space is a positive sign of success for any business. However, it also signals a natural step, transitioning into a space appropriately zoned for commercial activity. This is not a punishment. It is a standard expectation and simply a cost of doing business. Commercial properties are specifically designed to support such operations and would provide the space, infrastructure, and zoning compatibility necessary for further growth without disrupting residential life. Please note this letter is submitted anonymously in an effort to preserve neighborhood harmony and avoid interpersonal conflict. While we believe in the right to voice concerns during the public process, we are also mindful that openly opposing a neighbor's request, particularly in a tight-knit or long-established community, can result in long-term tension, strained relationships, or even retaliatory behavior. Our concerns are not personal. They're rooted in a collective desire to maintain the residential integrity and livability of our neighborhood. For these reasons, we respectfully urge the Planning Commission and decision-making authorities to deny the zoning request and preserve the residential integrity of our neighborhood. Sincerely, concerned residents and neighbors. I think it was a little over 2 minutes, but I did my best. So if there's anybody else who would like to speak either in opposition or in favor of the request, if you can approach the microphone, give your name and address, and do your best to keep your comments to 2 minutes, please. See one taker. Good evening. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Phil Darling. I live at 3211 Ardian Trail, directly across the street from the property on topic tonight. I have lived there since 2009, so I've been there for a number of years. And I will say this in favor of the Floyd Transportation, that they have been very conscientious of their neighbors as far as the way they park the buses. In the evening, they back them in as opposed to have them back them out in the morning and hear the alarms go off. We don't hear anything from our bedroom across the street from them. I have noticed their drivers are very conscientious when leaving their property. Where do school buses operate? In residential areas. So the argument that some of our neighbors said that, that caused problems with being in residential neighborhoods, to me is invalid, because school buses operate in those type of neighborhoods. So I want to speak in favor of Tanya. They have invested a lot of money to make sure aesthetically that the buses, if any of you have driven by there and looked, you will notice they're not parked out in the front yards, up on blocks or anything like that. They have have taken a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort to make sure that these buses are properly parked. And so I would encourage I like what the lawyer had to say was to maybe make a stipulation, and we're not going to turn this into a strip mall area. We can just have it to deal with these buses and allow them to continue to, because I know they feel good about having their buses there where they can have cameras on them and know that there's not any vandalism taking place, which if they're not parked on their property, they face that issue as well. So I, as a neighbor, would encourage you to allow them to use the property as they have since 2004, or however long it's been.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Yep, see one more. Good evening, sir. If you can provide your name and address, please.
My name is Ron Reniger. I live at 1105 Tamarack Trail. I've lived there for close to 50 years. I have seen the Floyds and the buses. They're the nicest neighbors. It's the quietest group. They'll do anything to help you. I agree with everything my neighbor just said. But it was kind of funny because in your letter that this might have something to do with appraisal of our homes. I just got my appraisal for $500,000. I only paid $38,000 for it. So evidently, those buses have risen. And this from the county. This is just not me backing
Oh,
it up.
I got
From
my
the
letters
county.
too,
I'm
yes.
sure you all hear them. But seriously, they're the nicest neighbors. They're not noisy. My bedroom window is right next to where the buses are parked. I never, and my wife will tell you, I never have a problem with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we have one more. Hello, ma'am. You should know, but name and address, please.
Valerie Luke, 1165 South Seminole.
Thank you.
I have 4 children, grandchildren. They've all went to school by them here in East Ridge. The buses are a part of East Ridge. Our children drive by their house just to see the buses because they know this is the only one that carried them back and forth to school. They made sure the buses were safe. If they're at the school, no one knows if they've been tampered with. They carry our children. Our children are the future of East Ridge. That's who we're here for. These people make sure that they get to school. They make sure that they carried home safely. We know that they are because they're taking them. They've always took our kids. We've always trusted them. Why is it a time to change? In 1 year, it's historical that the buses have been parked in the same place. What are we without history to provide for our children? My kids all know that. The grandkids are going to go by the house and say, I rode that bus. My dad rode that bus. That's something we have to think about.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. It's my understanding that the nature of most of the things that appear before this board are usually as a result of a complaint. I don't think we have a platoon of codes enforcement agents. So there more than likely was some kind of complaint that had been lodged by a citizen, and that is the reason why there's a review, and they work with staff, and then staff recommends a zoning change, et cetera. That's normally how things get here. We don't actually see them until it reaches this level. But my assumption is there was somebody that did not want this to continue anymore. That would be my assumption. This is not the city looking for a means to have something for the agenda tonight. So while we are sensitive to the fact that, yes, obviously school buses are designed for residential use, and that was probably a silly comment, I also don't think the First Responders Act has bearing. What we're really looking at as the actual statements of fact we're trying to decide this evening is it appropriate to rezone this property for C2 to continue operating a business? Not whether or not we want children to walk to school, not whether or not we want to park buses at a school. That has nothing to do with this. This is a zoning commission meeting. Yes,
If I
sir.
may add,
Sure.
one thing I would like to state, and it's not really correction, but I don't think this decision is based upon whether we're talking about stopping a business in East Ridge or not. The business can continue. I think that the point here is the storage location of those buses
Right.
is the heart of this, not whether the business is going to have to cease and desist.
Correct.
It can continue.
Yes, just whether or
It's
not
just the
this parcel, it
location.
can be the location,
Yes.
whether this can be rezoned C2 to continue operating as this business, or whether the parking needs to be moved. That's my
Yes.
understanding. Is that right, Mr. Howell? I'm getting a nod from Mr. Howell, so that's what we're looking to address. Any questions from the commission? Any further feedback from the audience? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to deny the request to rezone.
Okay, I have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? Okay. Motion from Commission Member Witt and a second from Vice Chairperson Howe. So as a reminder, since this is a motion to deny, a vote of yes is to deny the request for rezoning. Can I get a roll call, please, Ms. Dietrich?
Vice Chairperson Howe,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Williams,
Yes.
Commission Member Witt,
Yes.
Chairperson Tuggle.
Yes. Okay, the next item of business is 6B, to consider the request of Dillard and Julie Sellers to have the property located at 1410 North Mac Smith Road, tax map ID number 169LL002, rezoned from C1 Tourism Commercial District to C4 Planned Commerce Center District. Mr. Howell.
Yes, members of the Planning Commission, This rezoning request for the surrounding land uses include Interstate 75 to the north, Interstate 75 to the east, commercial complex to the south, an independent living facility and hotel to the west. The independent facility is now closed, by the way. Proposed density is 58 dwelling units per acre, 257 units. Adjacent residential density is 21 dwelling units per acre. The zoning history for this site includes two, one in 2021 and the other in 2024. Both requests to rezone were from C1 to R3. Both applications were denied at that time. The following compatibility challenges are as follows. The property is bordered by I-75 and general commercial use. The use of an apartment complex would be non-traditional use of a lot so close to a major thoroughfare. The property directly abuts a major U.S. interstate, which could pose some serious noise disturbances, issues for future residents, as well as challenges to sell lease due to perceived lower desirability. The property does lie within the 100-year flood hazard area, and the proposed non-transient occupancy would impose substantial demands on city services during emergencies, such as flooding events, and also pose challenges for evacuation and first responders. Also, developing in the 100-year flood hazard area requires adherence to FEMA guidelines, including elevated structures above the base flood elevation and using flood-resistant materials. And lastly, separate and exclusive pedestrian entrance and exit for permanent residents other than those in addition to those used for access to the principal commercial area.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. It seems like the list you just read is a good bit shorter than what seems like a similar item from the most recent meeting from the former Days Inn property. Can you tell me what's the difference between what they're looking to do here and the redevelopment there on Ringgold Road?
So the difference between the two, the 1410 Max Smith site, they are proposing to use the commercial facility in the presence of a flood area. So anything that would be new developed in that area would have to be raised 1 foot above the base flood elevation. Now, depending on how much they improve the apartment complexes, if you do hit the 50% rule through FEMA, which is considered a substantial improvement, you would have to flood-proof the building or basically elevate flood-proof, or all the apartment complexes on the first floor would have to be all removed moved to the second floor. Versus what the Stay Inn Express at the 6510 Ringo Road site, it's not in the special flood hazard area. It fits the proposed elements of the C4 zone district as well as using, the existing apartment or motel for apartments and then demolishing the front building for for retail use in that area.
And I do recall now, Mr. Cox said he did raise the entire building, the foundation. So
that
thank
one
you.
different. And there again, it's not in the special flood hazard
Sure.
area. It's well above the base flood elevation. They did do an extensive rehab on 3 of those buildings in that area.
Okay, I recall that. Thank you. So the primary concern for this request is FEMA and the floodplain issue, the floodway.
That is very concerned. We've had in the past, when the retirement home was full of non-transient people there, placed a significant burden on our first responders, getting a lot of those people out of there. Even with the flood wall intact around that building, it still posed a problem getting people out of there. Now you're switching from a transient to a non-transient occupancy for the Budgetel would pose something similar in nature.
Thank you. Is this border region land?
I really don't look at that a lot, but I believe it is.
I'm seeing a nod from the city manager in the back, so I think for the purpose of the record, I'll say the city manager is giving a thumbs up that it is in the border region land. Thank you. And so there is proposal to add commercial in this as well as residential, which I think is a change from the most recent request we saw from the applicant.
That is correct.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions for Mr. Howell?
The only redevelopment or reinvestment in the property would be the commercial addition. They're not. Is there a proposal to remodel the existing buildings as well?
I believe so, but that'd be more for the applicant to answer on their end. Yeah, I do know the proposed commercial is new development. I couldn't really say as how they want to combine the units, especially for the two buildings that are considered motels to meet the space requirements. For that, you might be looking at, demolishing an interior wall, creating, from two and make it to habitable area. So, yeah.
Are they required to have two separate entrances, one to the retail and one to the?
Same as with the C4 requirements as the Stain Express is doing. Yes, you have to have a separate entrance for the pedestrian access. If you're not planning, so if you were going to develop this and have all the commercial on the bottom floor with the residential on top, you would not have to have that separate drive entrance for pedestrian access. Being this is separate from the residential portion of it, yes, you do have to have a separate drive entrance for that.
Do you have a percentage of the commercial versus the residential? Or is that a question for?
I don't have
Okay.
that.
Is there a representative for the applicant here this evening? Yes? Would you mind coming up? It seems we have some questions for you, and if you don't mind providing your name and address.
Good evening, Julie Sellers, 1776 Peachtree Street in Atlanta, Georgia. And I do, thank you. This is my first time presenting to you all. I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation that I think will help explain what we are requesting. We have, I am new to you all. I know that this property is not. And so just by way of introduction, I'm Julie Sellers. I'm joined with Jared Wilbanks, and the applicant for this property is Fifth Street Capital Partners. They are not the current property owner, so they have a contract to purchase. But if we can, okay. This is a request to rezone the Budgetel Motel and really renovate this property to create a mixed-use community with both apartment spaces as well as a new commercial and retail space. On the next slide, you can see some information about Fifth Street Capital Partners. This organization has experience, and I would say pretty extensive experience, in converting hotels into apartments in more than 5 cities in Georgia. This would be the first location in Tennessee, and we're excited to be here. By converting these outdated, underperforming, I'll go ahead and say problematic hotel spaces, we have the opportunity to create affordable housing options that have some added benefits versus just a hotel operation. Certainly most of the travelers coming into East Ridge have a variety of hotel options for their stay in the city, and this property it is a dated hotel. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Fifth Street Capital Partners has a contract to purchase if this rezoning is approved. They would purchase the property from the current owner. I included just a little news article on the slide from the city of Marietta, Georgia. Marietta is a lovely suburb outside of Atlanta. Marietta has not approved apartments. Marietta really has not been a huge supporter of apartments, but there was a Motel 6 right on the interstate and had significant issues. And Jared and I were part of the team that worked with the city. We requested a rezoning to allow for that conversion. It was I think one of the first apartments that had been approved, and certainly the first hotel conversion in Marietta. So on the next slide, just giving you the information, as was stated earlier in the meeting, you all are here to make a zoning decision, and the zoning change that we are requesting is from the C2 to the C4. The property directly across the street is zoned C4, so this would not be spot zoning. It is certainly similarly situated with other C4 property in the area. I did have an opportunity and have greatly appreciated working with Mr. Howell and Mr. Miller as we have kind of navigated through the process with Eastridge. On the compatibility, the first 2 statements really relate to location. And I am by no means suggesting that Eastridge wants to be anything remotely close to Atlanta, so please don't mishear me. But I am here to show you there are market rate, brand new construction apartments that are being developed in cities, in suburbs that are next to the interstate. And the location is one of convenience. This property would really provide apartments for workforce housing, people that are working in Eastridge, people who are working in the county and want a safe, affordable, and consistent rent. A lot of people that are on a more fixed income or on limited, income, getting paid, by, on a monthly or semi-weekly or even weekly basis. If those folks know that they can work and they have their utilities, the furnished apartment, Wi-Fi, and cable TV all included in their rent, it allows them the security of being able to budget and finance for other aspects of life. So this is certainly an opportunity. We've got visiting nurses, young teachers, a whole variety of professions that may be interested in an apartment to allow them to live in the city in close proximity to where they work at an affordable rate. The location near an interstate does not equal a lower quality, and we certainly know that there are very expensive apartments that are located right next to interstates, very similarly situated to this location. On the next slide, and my apologies, with the construction on Max Smith Road, it's hard to take a photo, so I used one from the internet to show what we are talking about with this conversion. Is taking that kind of, if you're familiar with the property, there's that older, outdated building. It's got like the drive-through and that aspect. And then we've got an architectural rendering below that would show how this can really reimagine and revitalize this property. I think the major things that you will notice from the architectural is a more flat roof, more modern look. This would be a renovation of that particular building to really create an addition of some commercial and retail in a newer space. On the next slide, this just gives you another visual and vantage point of how that fits in with the residential buildings. I'm going to show you some photographs because I know I'm a visual person and I can hear somebody talk all day long, and I'm either going to make up a picture in my head that is completely off, or I'm going to maybe get close. But I think there's, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So what I am showing you are actual renovations of hotels to apartments that Fifth Street Capital Partners has done. So in this slide, the top of the picture, this is the before. You can see there was, you all don't know me, I'm a pretty straight shooter. Nasty carpet, just outdated, not good looking. And then after the renovations, you've got the solid surface floor, repainting, the addition of the kitchenettes. That's one example. On the next slide, I've got a couple of other before photographs that just sort of show, these buildings, they are solid buildings. They've got good bones, but really need some attention and care and upgrades to really make it a more beneficial part of the community. So you see the before pictures, and then on the next slide, you'll see the after pictures. So again, furnished apartments, there's a refrigerator, TV, new furniture, repainting, new flooring, table and chairs, the appliances, the cooktop, and everything. Certainly a tremendous upgrade from the existing motel. On the next slide, this is just showing the overall layout of the existing property. We are not proposing to do, a demolition and ground up. That would be cost prohibitive to be able to do an apartment building here. Construction costs are through the roof. And this, again, these are solid buildings. They just need updating and a lot of attention to detail and upgrades with the renovations and the updates. So the pool would certainly be, repaired, functional, to be able to have a pool amenity for the residents that live there. One of the standard features that they do in the community is also having a grilling space. So around in that pool area, not necessarily right on the pool decking, but in that area, having places for people to gather. The communities that Fifth Street has done, they have some residents that have lived there for years. So it really does end up becoming a community for some residents. And so again, we are here tonight asking for your consideration and recommendation of approval to change the zoning from the current commercial zoning to a commercial zoning that would allow this mixed use development. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and happy to talk in any detail, but hopefully these photographs and really just exploring what we are proposing has been helpful to see kind of the vision for reimagining and operating this property.
Sure, thank you. And I respect closing with a slide with your ask, so no problem. Request recommendation of approval, SE. So is your organization the same one did you do a development in Rome?
Yes.
Okay, we have a store in Rome on Shorter Ave, so I'm a bit familiar with that. And is my lay opinion, it seems like it's substantially the same residence, just with a longer lease. What's the distinction here for what the new vision is for this property?
Now, when I say we've done, there are communities in Rome, but Rome's a big city, so I can't speak to
Same
exactly.
as East Ridge, so
Jared,
that's why I thought I'd bring that one up, because
Yeah.
we have a store in both. I have a store in East Ridge and a store in Rome, so I'm familiar with the development.
Jared, do you know the specific one that you're referencing?
I don't know the address. I'm so bad at it. I only go there once a month.
That's okay, but Skyline, Skytop.
That sounds right.
So
Yeah, sure.
Jared's more boots on the ground. He's going to know the
Okay,
names.
thank you. Yeah, so if you just, what's the general difference in vision, et cetera? What are you thinking for this development versus what we've seen in Rome?
To answer what I think was your first specific
Sure.
question, the difference in resident profile, we do use a professional management company, and with that comes background checks and credit checks. So we do have the criminal background, and we know the history of the folks that are going to be living on the property and in the area.
Sure. Okay, so your idea is to cull and to be able to improve the general.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
Jared's been living, the Motel 6 I mentioned, that has been a challenge to get some of the folks that were not able or unwilling to submit to the criminal background checks to get them evicted. So that is certainly something very important. They're making a significant investment in updating this property, and certainly don't want to invest in something that is not, that would almost guarantee a lot of headaches if
Sure.
you're not doing that. So we have certainly stipulated in other situations for minimum lease term 6 months has been something that some cities have requested. The stipulation that the background check, credit check, professional property management, those are certainly things that would be very typical and agreeable. That is their business model.
Sure. And I think that there's a bit of a difference in vision because you're also looking to incorporate commercial here. So could you talk a little bit more about what you were interested in doing with the commercial space? Or am I misunderstanding?
No, so the commercial space would basically be taking that building that's kind of the lobby for the hotel and building out. We don't have any tenants or anything. This is the first step. We've got to get the approval, but they would be small retail. I think we figured out square footage, maybe 3 to 4. So depending on the tenant's request and spacing need, it would be a typical commercial build out to accommodate the tenants.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicants?
All right, so let's go backward from the last few statements. So it appears that the commercial is the very smallest building there toward the front, which is the office now. So what ratio or what total square footage do you envision is going to be commercial versus how much is going to be apartments? And let me say, affordable housing is definitely a need. I understand that. I do have concerns with the 100-year flood hazard area and a few other things, but what is your ratio of the commercial versus the apartments? Do you have that? or square footage? If
Ish.
you don't have
I can
ish.
Math-ish is not my strong suit, but I can tell you, certainly the commercial is about 78 by 35. Let me see if we have.
Has 2,000-ish, 2,100 square feet, something like that. Manager
Okay.
math.
And then the other,
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. So, I do have it on the site plan.
Okay.
So the commercial, we have 2,700 square feet. You are very good at math. And then about 1,500 square feet of that same building for tenant amenities. So, you know,
Okay.
some laundry and sort of on the back side of that, so that there would be separation between the resident-focused portion of the property versus the public-facing commercial portion.
so the other 4 larger buildings then would be what you would look at converting into apartments.
That is correct, yes, sir.
And there's no envision to raise that, or you mentioned you're not going to demo it, so they would.
No, we are still, looking into, obviously, we're gonna have to satisfy, any of the items that were addressed in number 3 as it relates to the 100-year flood hazard area. We don't have the specifics now. We haven't had, somebody, it seems like, again, our view was kind of the zoning was the first step. And then certainly, I would think before we could get Mr. Howell to issue us building permits, we're going to have to be able to satisfy that we have either we don't meet because of the elevations of the building and where that first floor lies, if it's high enough, or be able to have accommodations to address. And I don't know that that's something that Jared has had to do on the recent projects, but certainly there have been mechanisms put in place on other projects that address potential for concerns of flooding.
Sure. East Ridge is a bit more of a dry lake than Rome, so there may be some other challenges.
Yeah. So what is the appropriate or the available square footage that you're looking at for these apartments? I'm sure you'll probably have different scenarios. So what is the minimum, maximum, things like that you're looking at for these?
So for the actual apartments or the
Yes.
total buildings? So the apartments, the breakdown that we have, the smallest units would be 300 square feet, and that would be about 118 of the units. The 600 square feet, so those would typically be combining 2 of the units. We've got 10 of those, and then we've got 129 of the larger 700 square feet units.
So the largest is 7, the smallest is 3. What type of appliances are you envisioning being in these? Are they all the same or is it going to be different based upon the size of the apartment?
It typically will be the same appliance build out. You'll have a 2-burner electric cooktop, you'll have a microwave, and you'll have a 10 to 14 cubic foot refrigerator.
Skytop in Rome, what was that converted from? What type of hotel was that?
That was originally an exterior corridor motel. I believe it was
Is it a Holiday Inn?
that sounds correct.
Okay, I've been there before because that was
Anybody
Previous-
who went to prom in the 80s or 90s
Okay.
there.
Yeah, I think during one of the last rezoning requests, I actually toured that. All right. This is going to be more of a question for the fire marshal and for Mr. Howell. So I understand that probably some of these buildings are solid, but I understand that also there was structural issues in the past. There was railings, they were deteriorating concrete, they were unfunctioning elevators. Do you know if those are still existing? Are those major concerns and issues? Not only with the flood issue, which is my major issue, but I'll stop there.
I'm sorry. I believe back in 2016 is when the city took action on that property and condemned it for some structural issues. It's my belief that those have been, when the building official at that time, Brad Hayen, was here, I believe all those has been rectified. As far as the elevator issues, With the last court order, only building one's been open for a while, so the remaining other 3 buildings have been, as far as I know, have been closed down. So prior to that, there was issues with building one, I believe it was, in an elevator.
Okay.
That's the only one that I do remember.
I think that's all I have at this time.
Are building 2 and 3, those are still vacant at the moment?
Yeah, there are 3 buildings down there, I believe, that are still vacant. Building one's the only one in operation right now. And that would be the front one facing Mack Smith Road.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for developer or city staff?
I don't have a question, but I want to elaborate on something you pointed out about transient versus non-transient. So when you're talking about moving into a transient type environment, you're talking about people having personal value, valuables there on a permanent basis versus something that's temporary. So that, I think that's kind of elevating the concern for public safety and, you know, rescue type situations like we had in the past.
It is.
Is that correct?
For the simple fact that, you being transient, you've got a suitcase maybe with you. You can go. Most people that non-transit, they have a lot of belongings with them, which we saw in the past at the residential care facility. That was, that's zone C4 as well, but is no longer, that thing has been closed down now. But it did provide, it put a huge burden on fire department, EMS, and police as far as to get those people out of there because they were non-transient. And so in this aspect, you would be going from a transient to a non-transient occupancy as well.
Yeah, in a 100-year flood zone.
In a 100-year flood zone, yes.
Thank you. All right, before we entertain motions, remember, if you're proposing a motion and you have restrictions in mind, please propose an amendment. We most recently, 2 weeks ago, looking at a similar project that had more commercial, included lease restrictions, et cetera. So for purposes of clarity, if you make a motion, if you can provide your amendments, and then we'll vote. Looks like the applicant has a...
Yes, ma'am.
If it's appropriate, I do have a list if that's something that would be appropriate to
Feel free.
to share. And in this, it really is just specifying the minimum residential lease, the requirement of the background check and credit check, detailing the minimum amount of the renovations as far as like the new floor, new paint, really spelling that out, and then also talking about the pool will be repaired in working order. Certainly elevators are going to have to be repaired. I mean, the building is going to have to come up to be pass inspections and all of that to be occupied. So, but I'm
Sure, come on up and we'll distribute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll also entertain public comment before we entertain a motion. So if there's anybody who would like to speak either in favor or against the proposal, if you'd like to come up and give your name and address and keep your comments to 2 minutes, please. Not seeing a mad rush, I will now entertain a motion, including amendments or not, as you see fit.
I make a motion to deny the rezoning. No amendments.
Okay. We have a motion to deny from Commission Member Witt. Do we have any second, or actually I believe we should handle that one first.
I'm sorry?
You're the expert on parliamentary procedure, which is why I'm looking at you. I believe we handled that one first before we proposed any alternative.
Well, she
right?
made a motion to deny.
Right.
I'll second that.
Okay, second. There we are. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And remember, a vote yes would be to deny. You get a roll call, please, Ms. Dietrich.
Vice Chairperson Howe,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commissionmember Williams,
Yes.
Commissionmember Witt,
Yes.
Chairperson Tuggle.
Yes. All right, the next item on the agenda is 6C, and that is a plat review for 529 Frawley Road, tax map ID number 170GA006.02 for Garland Estates 2. Mr. Howell.
Yes, members of the Planning Commission, this is to consider the request of Joseph Ingram to review the preliminary plat for Garland Estates Phase 2 development. This preliminary plat includes a two-story townhome development comprising of 109 units, along with a 26-foot wide private drive and 5-foot sidewalks. Additionally, there will be a mail kiosk in the center with 3 community lots included in the design. The preliminary plat has been reviewed by Hamilton County Regional Planning Agency, RPA, Wastewater Treatment Authority, WWTA, and Water Quality Department. The East Ridge Building Department and the East Ridge Fire Marshal's Office has also reviewed it. The lots comply with the East Ridge RT1 Townhome District requirements for size and width. The widths of the private drive also meet the subdivision requirements. However, lots 93 and 81 will need to obtain rear setback variances from the Zoning Appeals Board. The landlocked parcel to the south will be transferred to Garland Estates Phase 1, and the existing fire hydrant layout will be adjusted to meet fire code requirements. And just as a reminder, the approval of a preliminary plat just indicates the general approval of your roads and your lot designs. This does not by any means include the final plat approval. So if this body does approve it tonight, that means the developer can start the streets development in with.
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Mr. Howell from the commission?
Only question I have, this has already been through zoning, and it's already zoned as a,
Yes, Mayor. It was approved September the 12th, 2009 by ordinance 111 from
I thought it
A1
had
to
been.
RT1.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
just wanted to confirm.
Sure.
And it meets all the requirements, right?
It does, yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, any comments from the public on moving lines around, either in for or against? Okay, you're representing the applicant, if you'd like to. Does anybody have any specific questions for the applicant? That's fair. Before he says anything, does anybody have any questions for him? Okay, great. Hold, please.
Appreciate you coming.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
I believe we're familiar with the plot. Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissionmember Witt and a second from Vice Chairperson Howe. Roll call, please, Ms. Dietrich.
Vice Chairperson Howe,
Yes.
Commissionmember Cornelius,
Yes.
Commissionmember Williams,
Yes.
Commissionmember Witt,
Yes.
Chairperson Tuggle.
Yes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is 6D, and that is another plat review. 3421 and 3423 Bennett Road, tax map ID number 168CF007.01. Mr. Howell?
Yes, members of the Planning Commission, this is considered the request of Bryce Kaufman to subdivide an existing parcel into 2 lots. Neither of the 2 proposed lots meet the 75-foot road frontage requirement outlined within the single-family residential zoning regulations. However, this lot includes a perpetual 50-foot easement as specified in the deed recorded in book GI 11235, page 592 at the Hamilton County Registrar's Office. This easement crosses over the neighboring lot located at 3400 Gale Drive to the south to access the 3423 and 3421 Bennett Road parcel. Both proposed lots will have shared access via an easement providing full access to the public right-of-way on Bennett Road. Since this easement is already recorded, this request serves as formality for the Planning Commission to rule and review and have an acceptance. It will be noted on the final plat that the easement or right-of-way used for access shall be further defined and described by notes on the plat, which set forth the limits of public liability and responsibility to properties and citizens that are served such access ways. Notes shall include the following. The permanent access easement is to be privately maintained by the owners and not by the City of East Ridge. The second one, the owners are responsible for providing all desired utilities and service to the public road. The City of East Ridge is not responsible for providing services beyond the city limits of the public road. And like I said, this is just a very unusual lot. It's not landlocked in a sense, but it did have an easement, perpetual 50-foot easement granted to it by deed. So it's really just getting Planning Commission's approval and reflect that on the plat saying, yes, move forward with it.
Sure, and aside from the kind of unusual restrictions, there are no real compatibility challenges. It's just formalizing an unusual kind of
Yes, that's all.
line on a map.
It's zoned R1, and it's got enough square footage on there to zone two parcels. Actually, more than that, but at this point, the 50-foot ingress would serve only for two parcels. Because if you really broke it down, these would be considered a flag lot in a sense, where you'd only have a 25-foot drive aisle for each one of these properties, which works actually perfectly for these two parcels.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions?
So, is this two lots that are zoned R1, or is this entire property one lot?
So GIS has identified two address numbers on this. At this point, this is one lot. Using the drive access that's already been recorded in the deeds, it will be into two lots, yes.
So now it's R1, but you're saying that it could be two homes be built on a, explain to me what.
I'm sorry, I will go back, Mayor. So zoned R1, there will be one house on 3421 Bennett Road and 3423 Bennett Road. Zoned R1 single family residential.
So that's two pieces of two lots.
Two lots.
Zoned
two
R1.
homes. Yes.
Okay, that's what I didn't know if the whole parcel was. It was one whole parcel, but it's two, and both zoned R1.
And the 50-foot ingress egress easement would provide sufficient space for a driveway for both parcels.
That is correct. Right, like I said, right now it's one lot.
Sure.
It hasn't been subdivided yet. This is the proposed subdividing that was submitted to Hamilton County RPA.
So then it'd have to come before, be rezoned.
It would not. It's zoned correctly already for
Okay,
single-family residential. The only thing, we could administratively prove this through staff, it just being adding a lot line to this.
Okay.
Hmm.
Vacant.
I think he's
lots.
wanting to say something. Okay.
To clarify, there's no houses currently,
That is correct.
and we're splitting the lot, so potentially in the future, there could be R1 single-family homes built on these two lots.
But you'll have to give your name and address before we let you talk.
I'm
Don't mind
sorry.
giving your name and address, please.
At 8616 Absent Pike, Ooltewah.
Thank you.
There will be two homes. It'll be divided up, and we just have gone to get a permit multiple times, and it's just not recognized by the city of East Ridge yet. So I can't get a sewer tap because the plot's not recognized for the easement. So that's my that's my problem. Once that gets recognized by you guys, I can rock and roll.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
So may I ask, so what is your intent? Is you going to do two single-family homes? Is that something that you're going to develop and sell? Is that something that you're looking
No,
to
sir.
build and rent, or what is your?
There's already two owners that are ready to build now. We're just trying to get this zone so I can go pull a permit.
okay.
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 I'm ready to build.
So they're good, the owners are gonna live there.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else?
Yep. I'm good. Any further questions for the applicant, commission? No? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve from Vice Chairperson Howe and a second from Commission Member Witt. Ms. Dietrich, roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Howe,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Williams,
Yes.
Commission Member Witt,
Yes.
Chairperson Tuggle.
Yes. And the last item on the agenda is a plat review for 1619 Keeble Street, tax map ID number 169NC001. Mr. Howell.
Yes, member of the Planning Commission, this is to consider, I'm Francesca DiBosino, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, to approval to subdivide an existing flag lot into 3 single-family residential lots, using a single shared 25-foot wide access drive from the public right-of-way. The shared access would serve all 3 lots via a single flat lot drive entrance. The R1 zoning ordinance requires 75 feet of road frontage per lot. The applicant was requesting a variance from the road frontage requirements to accommodate 3 lots on 1 shared access. It's important to note that this parcel, there is additional parcel in your packet that it's kind of covered up, but there is an existing structure right here at 1603 Keeble Street, which actually utilized a portion of this drive access, 10 feet, and the 25 foot drive access for the property for 1619 Keeble Street. The remainder is set to that one. According to the plat recorded, identified as Book 20, page 82, there's a total drive entrance for this drive of 35 feet. The flag lot at 1609 Keble Street uses the 25 foot of this entrance, while the parcel at 1603 Keble Street uses the remaining 10 foot for its drive access, as shown on the recorded plat. Consequently, both 1603 and Keble Street and the flag lot at 1609 Keble Street share a portion of 35-foot drive entrance. This would essentially be granting 4 single-family dwellings to utilize a 35-foot drive entrance for ingress if the variance is approved. Per the East Ridge subdivision regulations, a single flag lot is reserved when it's impractical to access the public road. Flag lots are intended to be used to preserve the natural features or to create a more beautiful building site. The East Ridge Fire Marshal had the following concerns with this. The shared access must be capable of supporting emergency vehicles. The hammerhead turnaround requires a 70 feet in length per the 2018 International Fire Code. 50 foot is provided for this particular hammerhead. The furthest point from a structure, if exceeding 400 feet, would require a private fire hydrant to be installed. Rough estimates for the fire hydrant location off McKinley and Keble measured from said point to the furthest proposed lot indicates over 500 feet in length.
Thank you. So if I'm following, and that was going to be my first question was for the fire marshal, so thank you. You said the code requires 75 feet and there's 50? Is that what?
For single family, yes, for the R1 zone district requires a 75-foot road frontage. Now for a single flag lot, which this is, you're required to have 25 feet. Or if there is a home that's adjacent to this, you can use it as, if there's a home close in proximity with the drive entrance, you can reduce it down to 15 feet because of that narrowness of it. In this case, it's one flag lot, 25 feet drive entrance. This would be adding 3 lots to an already existing flag lot. So you're doubling, almost tripling that to use a drive access of 35 feet for basically 4 structures, because you would also be utilizing the existing drive access for the 1603 Keble Street. So that's 4 single-family homes on a 35-foot wide drive access, where East Ridge requires 75 foot.
So I'm hearing the compatibility challenge from the fire marshal's not been addressed to his satisfaction, right?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
What would it change if she changed it to 2 lots?
There again, the flag lots require to have one flag lot, 25 feet. It's you don't normally see flag lots subdivided. They're there when you don't have the room to access a public right of way. So you'll have a 25-foot drive entrance for home on one's flag lot. Here again, you're putting 3, even 2 would be a substantial improvement. I mean,
And it's these lots is currently zoned R1.
that is
single
correct.
Family.
Yet, I believe before my time, there was a legal non-conforming structure on this side. It was a duplex, so there were 2 units being utilized as legal non-conforming on this site. But there again, you're now asking, or the applicant's asking to put, basically 4 homes on a single 35-foot drive entrance.
Okay.
And there are compatibility challenges with the fire marshal as well, not meeting those requirements.
Sure. Thank you. All right. Would the applicant or representative like to come and address? Thank you. And if you don't mind giving your name and address, please.
Francesca Diaz Bisono, it's 3806 Tips Ridge Road, Dalton, Georgia.
Thank you.
So just adding on to what Mike is saying, the lot, it's pretty unusually shaped. And looking at the lot, it's kind of like, I don't want to call it a waste because no land is a waste, but just the way that it's like angled in with the flag lot, it looks like a flag. Splitting it into 3 lots. The road, the easement, I'm sorry, I didn't print copies for everybody, but if your eyesight ain't too bad, basically the entrance of the lot, we had a T-shape where it allows any emergency vehicles to be able to turn around, whether it's like trash services, ambulance, policemen, just anything of that specific, to be able to just go in and out of the lot with no issues.
Okay, but it's my understanding, I think there was something about the radius or the width. I was trying to follow you, Mr. Howell, but there were a lot of numbers.
I'm sorry.
If you don't mind giving us the
This
compatibility
hammerhead
challenge.
right here
Yes, sir.
shows 50 feet, requirement 70 on that for the International Fire Code.
Okay, and that's where the fire marshal's
That's where the
compatibility
fire
challenge
marshal
comes
has
from.
concerns
Thank
with
you.
it, yes.
Okay. Looking forward, if this were approved, would the lot would that be density where it would have to be rezoned from R1 anyway?
It would not, but you are increasing the density substantially in this area.
The lot size would be appropriate for a single-family home?
Yes, the way they have it laid out now, the lot sizes do meet the requirements. You just do not have the road frontage for it.
Okay.
And you mentioned garbage service, there would be no way that garbage could get down your driveway, they would not
If
come
they
down.
back up into the 50, they should be able to just go straight in and then back up.
It would be a private
But,
drive,
yeah.
they would not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Hammerhead would be a private drive.
That's not
So
a
it
private
wouldn't-
drive there?
No, that was the question.
Yeah.
The fire marshal's gonna address that, if you don't mind.
It's a little bit different private drives compared
Sure.
to the sanitation, sorry.
Sure.
So we can go down private drives, we have to, because we don't have enough initial line to stretch from the road to our house or those houses.
Okay.
Sure.
So we actually have to pull down. That's why we need a certain road, certain turnaround, because our larger trucks, we need to be able to turn around safely without hitting something or someone.
Damaging your truck?
And us in the garbage.
Sure. Okay. Sanitation doesn't have the same permission to drive where they need to drive. Got it.
So adding on, or not adding on, but to your point about the density, so looking at the hashed areas here, is there any issues with setbacks on the development on having these three lots?
The only setback would be, and I'm just going to refer to this as Lot 1 that I've marked here.
Okay.
Would be your front setback here. Normally in this, the subdivision regulation for the city of East Ridge, when you have a cul-de-sac or a half turnaround, something like this, the required setbacks, even though you don't have the road frontage, once again, that's what the variance is requesting, you would have to set this house back at least 75 feet from the road frontage, but we don't have it here. So there would be an issue with this particular lot here. I know that doesn't probably make a lot of sense. You do not have the 75-foot road frontage here. It's hard to lay out exactly what the road frontage would be since
Sure.
this is not a dedicated driveway.
So this is creating a hardship on us
Yep.
immediately,
Mm-hmm.
approving this, okay?
Well, yeah, and you can't create your own hardship.
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant or the city? Anyone from the public would like to speak either in favor or against the request? And thank you to the applicant, by the way. Okay, seeing nobody, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to deny due to the hardship. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion to deny due to the hardship being created by Commissioner Member Witt and
Along with the concern of the
Sure.
emergency turnaround.
yes. Thank you. And a second by Commissioner Member Williams. Roll call, please, Ms. Dietrich. And I'm sorry, vote of yes is to deny. Continue.
Vice Chairperson Howe,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Williams,
Yes.
Commission Member Witt,
Yes.
Chairperson Tuggle.
Yes. Okay, there being no further new business, this